The next steps took place after a few weeks, during which on email these values were subject to reflection and further refinement. These steps were the most difficult ones and focused on implementing the values in the daily life of the team. You could say, in a way, to take them from values to more to the deeper level of basic assumptions. But we wanted to integrate them in the decisions and the routines and the actions of the team. We started this process with the discussion of cases. The coaches would formulate and send to me in advance a number of difficult situations in their daily work. We then discussed how they would approach these situations with the new values and how this would differ from how they might have done it before. And I asked them to always note, when we did this, what is my initial thoughts and my initial urges to act? What do I want to do? What values should I consult to get guidance? And then finally, what would then be the right action to do? So examples of cases were that a parent calls and complains that a coach selected the wrong athlete for a national team or for a competition, most likely because his own daughter or son did not make the team. It could be a prioritized athlete who says no thank you to go to a training camp, but still wants to be selected for the championships. Or maybe a coach colleague who seemed stressed out and absent in training, and what to do in these situations. So we discussed this first. After discussing these cases, the next step was to implement the core values in the new culture in the daily work. First, we made sure that the values were put on posters and were always displayed in the meeting rooms whenever there were meetings. In a way, we created a cultural artifact, you can say. Also, and for an extended period of now more than a year and a half, I have been taking part in almost all of their coach meetings and a number of training camps, not only with the purpose to support the athletes, but also with the purpose to support the transformation of the culture of the team of coaches. And in practice, often I would be sitting at the table and they would have discussions, and whenever there were difficult decisions or maybe even conflicts, I would be the one to get up and say, hey, let's just consult the values for a minute and see if we can find any sort of guidance in them. And usually we could find guidance in those values. Now, the intervention started almost 2 years ago, and in many ways it is still ongoing. I suppose, changing a culture is a thing that never finishes. As an applied project, this project has not been subject to a specific scientific evaluation, but I work with these coaches and athletes on a weekly basis, and it is clear to me that such culture change projects have great potential value. What I find is that it has had value for the coaches, who now report a lot of less frustration, more task focus, and higher job satisfaction. And also they mention that they work together now more often, and that they more often coach each other's athletes than what they used to do before. It also has had value for the athletes, who are now part of a more coherent culture where the espoused values correspond much better with enacted values. And when I ask them, they tell me that this is a less stressful environment and more psychologically safe environment than what they used to be a part of before. But it is based on informal reports, of course. Now, this was an example of how the introduction of the holistic ecological approach and an entailing an increased focus on sport, like organizational culture, has added to the types of services that we provide in Team Denmark. We still do individual consultations. We still work mainly with athletes. But an increased focus on organizational culture and excellence has been accepted enthusiastically by the many federations that we work with. It is also an example of the successful integration of academic endeavors on the one hand and applied practice on the others. In this specific case, the integration of the holistic ecological approach in the sports psychology services of Team Denmark's leading, Denmark's leading elite sport organization. And I believe this is a major task for the future of sports psychology, to provide such integration between academic endeavors on the one hand and practice on the others. So just let me finish by thanking again the ISSP Managing Council for the invitation to present at this historic event. Thank you.
I have the honor now to call the President of the Italian Olympic Committee, Giovanni Malago, and the President of the International Society of Sports Psychology to the table for a welcome message